Mazda's first global electric vehicle. Yeah, they've just admitted it's not very good, as we all already knew. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Electric Viking. Fantastic to see you here on the channel. Welcome to all the new subscribers. There's been heaps of you over the last month. Honestly, it far surpassed my expectations to have so many of you. 25,000 or whatever over the last month or two. Great to have you. Welcome to the channel, and welcome back to everyone else. Thank you for your support in 2021. We've now hit 2022, and what an amazing year it's going to be this year. It's going to be freaking awesome. There's so many new cars coming. I'm excited to bring you the news for this year. And you know what? This car, the Mazda MX-30 crossover, is not part of my excitement. It's abysmal. And you know what? I did a 21 car electric car test comparison. I don't know, about maybe 6 months ago. I'll put a link in the description below to that 21 car test comparison. Now, I didn't personally do the driving of these cars. This was done in Europe. And this was one of the best, if not the best, electric car tests ever done. Ever. I'm serious. Because it was done the same day, the same place, the same route. It was an amazing test that really, I think, is unprecedented in the scope of its actual usefulness for comparing vehicles. What I did is I took all the analytics, which took me, I don't know, maybe 30 hours to compare them all. And I worked out some charts and based the cars and gave them an overall score. I love statistics, and I tried to statisticize, I don't know how you even say that word, these cars to give you guys the best idea of which car you should buy based on their cost in Europe of all these EVs. The Mazda MX-30 crossover was in this list, and to be honest, I think it came second last. It was abysmal because it has a 100-mile range. Bit of a joke, if you ask me. 100 miles of range. For the price, yeah, sure, it was cheaper, but not cheap enough to justify 100 miles of range. You can get EVs in China with 100 miles of range for like $5,000 US, whereas this thing was like $35,000 US. And the other thing about this car that my test highlighted was the fact that half the car is made up of a bonnet and there's nothing in it. In other words, you're lugging around this enormous bonnet. It's the biggest bonnet on any EV in the marketplace, and it's not a big car, but it's got an enormous bonnet. You're lugging this around and you have no engine. What was the point of this car? It doesn't make sense. The whole point of these EVs, a lot of these EVs that are built from the ground up, right? Not these ridiculous cars like the BMW 3 Series EV that I just reviewed, which weighs 2.2 tons because they just took an ICE vehicle and stuck some batteries in it. I'll put a link in the description below to that video. You should check that out. But actual EVs that are made from the ground up, they can make them like the BYD Dolphin, the EA1, where they're smaller than a Toyota Corolla on the outside, but significant. I mean, I'm talking 30% bigger on the inside. That's one of the big advantages of an EV. And Mazda what were they thinking? Anyway, I didn't read most of the reviews on this car, but it turns out the reviews were mostly negative, with many journalists labeling it a compliance car due to its EPA range of only 100 miles. In light of its disappointing range, the starting price of $33,470 was deemed too steep by some reviewers. Mazda was probably hoping the Canadian market would be more welcoming for the MX-30, which has been available at select dealerships in British Columbia and Quebec since October. Unfortunately, Mazda Canada only sold 73 units in October and 44 in November for a total of 117 vehicles. Now, there is one thing about this vehicle. I've got to admit, it does look kind of cool. I saw one on the road the other day on the freeway, drove past it, and I thought, that looks kind of new, funky. But that can't make up for the fact that this vehicle is just not that good. In a recent article from Automotive News Canada, a local Mazda representative defended the MX-30's range with a rather bizarre argument, which Inside EVs talked about. I like the fact they picked this up. Mark Payman, Mazda Canada's National Manager for Product and Electrification Strategy, expected the MX-30 will appeal to urban buyers with access to a second vehicle, mainly serving as an eco-friendly way to get to and from work or the grocery store. The problem with this idea is when you buy a second vehicle, normally it's like a more affordable vehicle. You might buy one that's second hand, a few years old, or a car that's cheaper. A second vehicle, I mean, in Australia, this car costs $60,000. It's not cheap. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to go out and get a second vehicle. Oh, 60 grand, I'll just throw that away. That's nothing. Who cares? Surely if you're going to spend that kind of money You want a car with a good range and with a decent sized interior. Anyway, here's what the representative from Mazda said. We come to market with a vehicle like the MX-30 that has a smaller battery, a smaller footprint environmentally. It doesn't have a smaller footprint. The footprint's actually pretty big, and still meets the range needs of 90% plus of the consumers that will probably use this. We've found through research, many of these individuals have additional cars in their households that are for longer range. Now, I'm just going to talk about this footprint issue, which is just a misnomer. It's this concept that if the battery is smaller, therefore you're making less environmental impact. It's not really true. This is a myth, because the reality is we can now recycle and do recycle about 98% of these batteries. And realistically, if you buy a good electric vehicle with a good battery, it will last up to 2 million kilometers anyway. Seriously, that's what we're hearing from manufacturers now. Buy a BYD, you get 500,000 kilometer warranty, and that means minimum 60% battery capacity. But car companies are now saying around 2 million kilometers from a lot of these new battery packs. So the reality is you're going to use this for how many years? 30 years at least. After that, it becomes recycled entirely. It's a closed circuit system. It doesn't make any difference whether you mine that now or in 3 years' time. So this whole environmental footprint idea, it doesn't actually make mathematical sense. But anyway, getting back to the argument from Mazda, the reality is most people can't afford to own 2 cars. And this whole environmental footprint idea, if you want to talk about that, then owning 1 car, isn't that a better option than having 2? He's saying, oh, you have a second car, it has less range, less environmental footprint. How about just own 1 car? Wouldn't that be a better option? Now, Mazda says it's going to sway buyers with its sporty driving traits and its premium quality, despite the significantly lower range than similarly priced rivals. For example, the Hyundai Kona Electric has an estimated range of 415 kilometers or 260 miles compared to the MX-30's 160 kilometers or 100 miles. So it's got nearly triple the range. It's about the same price. In other words, you'd just have to be mental to buy the Mazda. You'd have to be just deranged to buy the Mazda instead of the Hyundai. Now, Mazda has allocated 700 MX-30s for British Columbia and Quebec for 2022 and believes this volume will fulfill demand in the first year. And it will, because it's not that good. If it was, say, a Hyundai Ioniq, they could probably sell 70,000 of them. But when you have a car that is clearly an afterthought, which this is for Mazda, then yes, Mazda are right. They won't sell very many. Sort of the same argument that BMW had, though, isn't it? BMW said no one wants electric cars because no one was buying the i3 because they just trotted out the same car at an expensive price year after year after year, kind of like the Nissan Leaf. Sales began to decline because the company didn't actually put any effort into improving it and to decreasing the price, which is what they needed to be doing for sales to increase. But as we see globally, electric car sales have gone crazy this year. But companies like Mazda haven't taken advantage of that opportunity. What does this mean? Mazda, honestly, I believe are in significant financial trouble or will be over the next decade and are one of the most likely legacy automakers to go bankrupt before 2030. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Have I got a point? Would you consider one of these cars? Do you think they're not a good example of an electric car? Are they something that you would buy? Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching the channel, and I'll see you again on the next one. Bye-bye.